huge welcome to Robyn. Thank you so much for agreeing to come and chat to us this evening. Thank you to all of you that have come through to have a listen to a topic which quite personally is really close to my heart. I myself used nutrition as a vehicle for healing many years ago when I went through my own cancer journey, and it's a pivotal part of my lifestyle. So I'm ecstatic that Robyn is in the house. Robyn is a health and nutritional coach, and we spent going on to easily over an hour chatting, and she's has a wealth of information and has like quite an amazing personal story that really just cements it and makes it so accessible to listen to. So Robyn, thank you so much for joining tonight.
Such a pleasure to be here and to connect with everyone this evening, and thanks everyone for joining on my side. We've had good discussions about the nutritional side of everything. I do study integrative nutrition and health, which means that we don't just look at what is on the plate, but we look at everything and how it relates to your general well-being. So it's your food, obviously what's on your plate, but it's also your stress, your sleep, your connections, everything affects everything. So that is, in my opinion, the way forward with regards to nutrition and health. And I work with people around the world. I'm very fortunate to have an amazing client base. And we work together to move towards optimal health and wellness. My whole theory is rooted in longevity, which is helping people to live long and well. So it's not just about living long, it's about living long, but really living those years well. So that's very important for me. People do come to me primarily for weight loss. I have people that come to me who are battling the cancer journey. I have people that come to me for autoimmune, skin dysfunction, but generally we're looking towards living long and well and moving towards that paradigm. So, and it's a joint move towards longevity. So it's never about me telling them what to do. We work together as a team, and it's based on bio-individuality, which means each person. So I never treat everyone with the same pattern and the same plan. I really like to work one-on-one with people, and I like to really hone in and find their flags and try and rebalance where the body is imbalanced. So that's what I do.
Wonderful. Thanks, Robyn. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
You have a personal story yourself. You know, I think what was so nice when I was chatting to you is hearing how your parents actually went through the cancer journey and you guided them through that with nutrition. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
No, well, not my mom. I mean, I was very young when my mom got cancer. I've had a very complicated relationship with food, talking about food, and then we'll talk about the whole functional medicine world and how I got involved in that. But I had a very complicated relationship with food when I was growing up. I used food to control situations where things were falling apart, and I used food as an emotional healing tool. So it took me many years to work through that journey. And that coincided with my mother getting a diagnosis of brain cancer when I was very young. And I could never understand how this amazing woman, the most beautiful woman and angelic woman, could fall sick with cancer. And in those days, it was a big thing because there weren't a lot of treatments and people didn't know a lot about cancer. And most people that, to be honest with you, most people that got cancer, you know, they died. That was it. You know, you had a few good years, and then that was it. Treatment was really limited at that point for brain cancer. And it affected me hugely. I went through this whole journey of why is this happening? Why, how could this happen to this person? But I was very young, and I couldn't help my mum in the way that I wish I had the knowledge then that I have now, because things would have been so different. But that was my journey into this whole world of functional medicine and how food affects your being, and how stress and sleep and your relationships affect the individual. So that went on for many years, and I watched her battling very badly with this cancer. She had good years and bad years, but generally she had an amazing support group in Hazel and Mark and people that are on here now. But it was really hard. I moved to London in 1996. I was involved in the computer sciences world. I used to build systems for the trade floors in corporate in London. I was very good at what I did, but I was very disconnected from it, and I never enjoyed what I did at all. But financially, it was very rewarding. But I found myself in London being drawn to this whole world of health, taking into account my background and my journey with food and my mother's sickness. I found myself going to yoga classes, and I saw all these amazing health shops cropping up all over the place on the high streets. And 2 to 3 years into London, I started really getting involved. I started going to all these courses at the Divertimenti cooking school, and going to try yoga in Primrose Hill, going to buy all my fruit and vegetables at Planet Organic, listening to all the talks there, jumping out of meetings at work to go onto live sessions where I should have been working. But I really felt myself being drawn to this whole world, and I suppose it was my quest to find out the why. But in doing so, I just found my passion was in this world of health and wellness, and listening to stories and reading books about people healing themselves and using food to heal the gut. I mean, in those days, the gut, no one spoke about the gut and the gut microbiome, but I used to read about that. And I went to the School of Natural Medicines. I signed up, but then I backed off at the last minute. And then when I finally quit the corporate world in London in 2004, I moved to New York. And that's when I made the clear break. And I started going to NYU to classes and studying and going to courses in functional medicine. Functional medicine was very new then. It was all about looking at the root cause of disease in the body and imbalance. And there was an amazing doctor who's an ex-South African. His name was Dr. Frank Lipman. And he was absolutely incredible. I used to listen to his lectures and talks about why there was disease in the body. Conventional medicine always looks at the symptoms. You have cancer, you have heart disease, you have hypertension. Why is that happening? You don't just get that. We're all born very equal and very clear and pure. Why does that happen? And there are a lot of reasons why it happens, but functional medicine delves into that world, and it's fascinating. Why did my mother get sick? What was going on? What causes imbalance? Then I started studying, genetics, and looking at genetics and realizing that, you're born with certain genes, but your lifestyle turns on those genes and factors. So a lot of people will turn around to me when they come to me and they go, well, I'm overweight, it's just my genes. And I have to coach them through this process of understanding that, yes, you are born with a certain profile of genes and a pattern of genes in the body, but your lifestyle turns on and turns off those genes. We know that now. So 90% of how you live your life and what happens in your life is dictated by your lifestyle and how you're turning on and off your genes. So I studied that as well. And then in I think it was about 2016 to 2017, I decided I wanted to move as a profession into this field, and I went to study at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and I graduated from there. And I continue to do courses through the Institutes for Functional Medicine overseas, Institute of Anti-Aging, and I'm always learning. I'm constantly learning. The science is changing so quickly that I have to spend a lot of time researching and learning to be able to do my work really well. But I love my work. I love it, and I love helping people. So I'm very, very lucky that I found my passion at the age of 46, 45, 46, finally doing it as a full-time career. Yeah.
Brilliant. I love the passion with which you speak about nutrition, and it's you know, it's evident in our lifestyle. At the moment, I'm doing a couple of master classes with an amazing nutritionist, Dr. Michael Clapper, and I told you about him as well. It just reminded me, and one of the things he says, and I love this, and it's so true. He says the body isn't capricious. It doesn't randomly decide to just, you know, grow a disease. It is holistic. It comes through various factors, and then coming back to the nutrition, you know. How he says there's so many foods can turn on and turn off genes can activate them or deactivate them. So you're 100% right there. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a study, it's called the Study of Epigenetics, you know, how your lifestyle, nutrigenomics is how food turns on and off the genes, and epigenetics is more about your lifestyle. And, you know, for people that don't understand this world, they look at it like a very woo-woo world. But, you know, the science is there. There are hundreds and hundreds of scientific papers now proving that how you eat affects, it's actually your gut, okay? Everything's about the gut. And we have this whole system called the microbiome. And there's more bacteria. I think there are 100 trillion bacteria that live within our intestines. And there are only 30 trillion cells that make up the human body. So, you know, we are actually visitors in their world. And this gut, the gut determines your health. 70 to 80% of your immune system is held within the gut. So, you know, when you eat food, food is function. Food it's not just the genes, but it's feeding those bacteria within the gut. And it is, and when it feeds the bacteria in the gut, these bacteria perform certain functions, and they produce certain butyrates, and they contribute to what is going on in your body. So it's all about the science of the gut, which is the way of the future, which is why there are so many systems out there at the moment that study the guts, you know, stool testing. That's all about the gut. And the top doctors out there in the world of functional medicine are proving that using certain foods and probiotics and prebiotics changes the trajectory of and the outcome of their patients. So that's what I study really, and that's why when I talk to people about food, it's really more involved than that. And I really, when I look at people's intake per day, I look at all the nutrients, because I study nutrient density as opposed to calorie counting. You know, dietitians, old school dietitians, you know, they believe calorie in, calorie out, and everything's about calorie. But we know that the body doesn't understand calorie, and that whole equation is flawed. The body understands nutrient density, and that nutrient density feeds the gut microbiome, and that's what equates to optimal health or poor health, and that's really what it's all about. So it's fascinating. It's a fascinating field. I think for people, when they think about food, what you really need to think about is a diversified diet. You know, so you've got this gut with lots of bacteria in the gut, and in order to ensure that you have a really healthy gut, you want to feed all the different bacteria, and they need different foods. And the way we do that is by feeding in lots of plant-based foods. So leafy greens and kales and spinach and broccoli and cauliflower and the colors of the rainbow. And that equates to a really healthy gut, which equates to long-term health and longevity, living long and well. We know that certain foods create or feed the bad bacteria in the gut. So the reason why I'm not a fan of sugar and conventional dairy, not organic dairy, but conventional dairy and glutens, is because it creates so much chaos in the gut and it destroys the gut lining. And then we get all these things seeping into the body that shouldn't be there, and the body starts self-attacking itself. So it sounds complicated, but really in layman's terms, you want to eat farm to table, as close to nature as you can. You want to eat whole foods, no processed foods. You want to eat, really like a Paleolithic diet, how they lived years and years ago, because that's what the body understands. And when people start eating like processed foods and the takeaways and the fried foods, I see 180s. I see people losing the weight that the body doesn't need. I see people skin clearing and they lose like 10 years. They age backward because they look so great and the gut is feeding the skin. I see people with autoimmune conditions losing the pain in their body. And when I work with people that are struggling with cancer, which obviously is very close to heart for me, I see their outcome after treatment is so different from someone who just does not take into account the food and the food aspect. So it's really, really important, and it's a way of the future in my world, in my eyes. It's a way of the future and the way that medicine is really going. And I just, I wish more people would read more about it. I wish there was more said about it, especially when it comes to dealing with things like COVID. I wish that we spoke more about how food affects the immune system and how, people's outcomes with COVID. But we, overseas, they talk about it a lot. Here, it's still very kind of niche. I'd call it niche, but it's happening slowly. So yeah, fascinating fields, fascinating what's going on. And there are lots of different diets that I work with, keto, plant-based, vegan, vegetarian. At the end of the day, all I'm really interested in is feeding that gut microbiome well, ensuring that people stay away from processed foods that are full of antibiotics and full of growth hormones, and feeding the body as close to nature as possible, whole foods. And that's where I see people really gaining true health.
I must agree with you. You just brought up the COVID that we're all sitting in and have been for 2 years, and I think if there could be a focus now on how to either use nutrition to help recover post-COVID or prevent it to build their immune system. I think that people have such a better chance, and it should be sort of more spoken about. Hand sanitizer is great, but I don't know when people forgot to wash their hands. But and that amount of alcohol and on your skin. I worked with chemicals for 20 years in the film industry, so I know the damage of that going onto your naked skin. My liver just suffered terribly. So if one could really do something real, like boost the immune system, like you say, with nutrition, and if they don't know, go and work with someone like you to guide the process. Any like you said to me the other day, you're like, you want to take somebody, see where they are and take them to the next step. Because we all have different paths, different places with our nutrition, but to improve where they currently are is always going to show an effect with one's health.
I mean, every person has their own journey, and there's no right and wrong. And it really is about creating, when I work with people, I really try and work that person out. I try and understand the person that I'm dealing with, because we all have different circumstances and we're dealing with different things in our lives. The idea is to create sustainable change, to look at find the imbalances in a person's life. And for each of us, that's different, right? For some people, it's very much about stress levels as opposed to food. You know, the food is actually the easy part because we can control it. Remember, we spoke about this. You know, the food, one of the best things about food as medicine is that we have the power to control that. We can buy the groceries we want. We can support the brands who are trying to create change in the world, and we can control what we put on our plate. But then there are other factors that are harder to control, and this comes into the integrative health equation. So when I sit with someone, we obviously start with the food, because that's important, and we'll sit and talk about how to make changes. I am a little bit black and white in the beginning because a lot of people want to see change, and when people see change, they are spurred on to continue on that journey. And I know what creates change very quickly. So, you know, I will say to them, we usually start with an elimination diet, and I'll say, right, just for 6 weeks, let's cut certain things out of the diet. When I listen to how they're eating, let's cut those things out. And then, you know, after 6 weeks, when the body's kind of reset, rebalanced, and we've turned off some of the addictive receptors, because it's a science, certain foods are addictive and they turn on addictive receptors. And until you actually have a breakaway for 6 weeks to usually 3 months, that addictive receptor is not turned off. So I start with the food and taking out addictive foods and foods that I feel for them are harmful, especially if they're dealing with gut imbalances or some type of dis-ease in the body, or, you know, hormone imbalance. You know, then I take things out like dairy, where I know the growth hormones in there that are affecting their hormone balances. So we take them out and we put them on a protocol of about 6 weeks. And, you know, it's not a restrictive diet. It's actually fantastic. It gives people so much freedom. All it is changing the way you think about food. So, you know, half your plate with beautiful vegetables, broccoli, cauli, all the greens, the whites. We introduce the colors. We keep the oranges to a bit of the low side in the beginning. And then we put beautiful proteins, whatever protein you love, but I'm very much about quality. Quality means grass-fed, pasture-raised meats that have been humanely raised, don't have growth hormones and antibiotics in them. Very important, because whole other conversation, but meat is really fantastic for the body, but it's about the quality of the meat. If you enjoy meat, it's about supporting regenerative farming, where you know, the meat is allowed to roam and is in the sunlight and not fed antibiotics and growth hormones. So your plate will be filled with protein and good greens and whites. And people actually find it liberating because there's no portion control. There's no restriction. It's just about quality, real foods, and taking out anything that downgrades your biology and fueling your body with things that upgrade your biology. And we start there, and then after about 6 weeks, we start working on reintroducing some things and seeing how the body reacts to that. You know, and after 6 weeks, most people will go, wow, you know, I had a piece of white bread or whatever, and I just felt so awful afterwards. And, you know, some people won't, but a lot of people do, and they can feel how their body reacts to things. So they are in control of that. And then they have the decision whether they want to leave it out or introduce, but, you know, have, you know, eat in moderation. So we start there, and then we weave in different things. We sometimes weave in supplements. If a person is not taking in enough of certain supplements, we weave those in the form mainly of nutraceuticals. So supplements that come from plants and real food. We sometimes weave in fasting, which is a whole other topic, intermittent fasting, time-restricted fasting, which is proven now beyond a doubt to extend longevity and living long and well. And we work within their capacity, within their range. And then we address things like stress and sleep. You know, those stress and sleep, I find, are on a par with what you're taking in food-wise. You can't only eat well and then, you know, not manage your stress or not sleep. If you're not sleeping, you're not rebalancing your body and nothing's resetting. So, you know, that's where integrative health comes in. And after 6 weeks, if there's still issues, we start delving more into bloods. I sometimes look at their bloods. Look at their inflammatory markers. I may work with the doctor, together with the doctor, to try and rebalance. And it's a journey. It's a journey, but it's a journey where you really never look back, because once you're on that journey and you feel that the vitality and the energy that you never felt before, you generally don't ever want to go back to the way in which you were living, because I don't think people realize how good it feels to feel good until they actually go this path. And most people are just used to feeling, half human, and they just walk around like that and they think it's normal. It's just the aging process, but that's not really what it's about. So yeah, we weave in the food, we weave in the stress, the sleep, and of course movement, like yoga. I love yoga, especially as people are, go into their 40s and 50s. It's the most incredible movement practice, because you are building lean muscle mass, you're learning to breathe, you are learning to control your stress, you're connecting with a community, like-minded community. I really miss my yoga because I don't go to the studios anymore, and that energy, I miss that. So that's also part of the integrative wellness world.
Come to me.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the balance. I'm trying to find the balance at the moment. And I must say that I'm absolutely married to my work. I mean, I'm married to I have the most fantastic partner and husband. I have 2 beautiful children, but I'm trying to find my balance, because my work is all consuming and I love it. So, I can spend all night studying and researching, and I have to, to be good and the best at what I do, I have to do that and to give my clients the best. But I'm learning to find the balance, and I'm finding that balance slowly, and I will be at your classes when the balance is totally right.
But you're right, that balance, and sharing it, both as a integrative health coach, as a yoga teacher myself, we all constantly working at the balance. It's something that you don't kind of like walking up a mountain, get to the top and like, oh, I got to the top. It's like every day, you wake up and you start again.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, and it's continuously, it requires effort continuously, but the rewards are so great that you never want to not give it a shot. And that balance is going to sit in your body, like you said. When you're looking at somebody, you're looking at the imbalances, and where does it lie, in which body? The physical, mental, emotional, energetic.
That's it. And it's all one. We spoke about that word where, I actually read this somewhere, that health is a verb, not a noun. And I love that, because it is so true. And I see it with the work that I do every day. It is never, ever a stagnant thing, and it is not a destination. And as we age and go through the different stages, we have to rebalance and readdress certain things. What worked for us in our 20s and 30s, is not going to work for us in our 40s and 50s and 60s. And we have to keep on educating ourselves. The other thing, is educating yourself about what is right for you at certain times of your life. You may, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I could drink and carry on, and I did all these crazy things that, I used to have carefree fun. I never thought about all of this. It was always at the back of my mind, but I never thought about it. And as you get older and you start getting affected, that's, unfortunately, sometimes it takes a chronic thing to happen for you to actually wake up and go, what have I been doing? It's never too late, and you can always work at creating better. But it's a constant, I have to constantly work at my health, constantly work at my balance. As much as I teach my clients, I learn from them. Through their journey, and watching what's going on with them and their lifestyle, I take from that too. And that's the great thing about life, is constantly being able to reinvent ourselves and to keep on moving towards better. That's what I call it, constantly moving towards better. My father was diagnosed with cancer. I think it was 3 years ago, he was diagnosed with cancer. So this is the second parent that, I've witnessed having to, unfortunately, go through this journey. And he totally took on this whole integrative health paradigm. He said to me, whatever you think I should do, I'll do. And he'd always been healthy, but I think things had just, he had let his health slide a bit. He wasn't nourishing himself as much. He didn't have the right balance. And he has actually thrived in the process. He's, I walked into his kitchen and threw out half his kitchen, and we started again. And he now is more of a guru than I am when it comes to where to find the right meats and, eating lots of plant-based foods and understanding movements and understanding balance with his work. And his results have been remarkable with his myeloma, and the doctor doesn't understand how his myeloma count is so low, and he doesn't want to know. But it's a combination. It's a combination of both worlds. It's never just one world. And I must say, I do not believe in conventional medicine. I think there's a time and a place. Conventional medicine is exceptional at fighting fires, and we need it. But you have to have both worlds, the yin and the yang. And please God, we move to a world where we don't need so much conventional medicine, and we move more to preventative. That is my wish, that the next generation understands how to create that balance and use food and movement to never end up in a space where the body is diseased. And hopefully it goes that way.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, with your journey, Elaine, you also had to relook at your life, right? And you had to look at your imbalances and heal through that, right?
Yeah, completely. I mean, I think when you get something that is really life-threatening, to me, I just saw the word cancer. I kind of changed it and thought, well, like, what if I'm diagnosed with the disease change? So change the word cancer to change. And instead of people going, oh, I'm so sorry, then they go, well, what's your change? So it's kind of a nice way to address, and you have to look at all of it. And the part that I could wrap my head around and be in control over, which you said earlier on, is what I put into my mouth and what I ate. The choice of going to an oncologist, using the West and the East, like you said, it's using both. It's the integration, the bringing together, which to me is yoga. Yoga is union. Yeah. That's what it means, not standing in some gymnastic pose, usually half naked on Instagram, but integration and coming together of like West, the East, bringing the best of that to heal.
So, and it's important for people to understand as well that it's not about being dogmatic. It's not about only following the strictest way possible. It's about finding your happy medium, but it's about being open to have the discussion. It's about being open to reading the research. I have a lot of people that just, as I start talking about it, they completely cut off. And that's fine, because I'm on my journey and I'm seeing what I'm seeing, and I have my own beliefs, and I believe very strongly in this world. But I'm very appreciative and I'm very understanding of people that don't, but I think people need to try and open up and read, go onto these websites, functional medicine websites, and look at these incredible doctors, trailblazers, and what they're doing, and listen to the journeys of other people going through what, if you're dealing with something, go onto the functional medicine platform, research what you're going through, and see what other people and doctors are doing in this futuristic medicine world. I mean, I call it futuristic, but it's actually old school principles, but it's being pulled through into this new science where we have all these tests and all these modern tools that we can use. And it's very, in my world, very, very futuristic and very promising. But, educate yourself. Don't just say no, educate yourself and maybe try. What I'd say to people is, if you don't believe in it, but you kind of interested, go on an elimination. Just use food to start. Go on an elimination and cut out the dairies and the glutens. I would say the sugars, the dairies, and the glutens, maybe some grains, add more plants to your plate, and just for 3 weeks or 6 weeks, I'd say 3 weeks for someone who's already a non-believer, see how you feel when you eat whole food and you stay away for 3 weeks from anything processed. And I'm talking sourdough breads as well. I'm talking totally clean meats, or if you're vegan, you're going to go for legumes, but you're going to maybe soak them and pressure cook them to get rid of the lectins, and you are going to really eat clean and just eat clean and see how you feel. And then ask yourself the question, is there something here? Do I feel the change? Is my energy different? Am I sleeping better? Am I a better parent? Am I communicating better? Is my focus better? Because those are the things to me that really count. It's not just about the weight. It's about how am I functioning as a human being? What is my quality of life like? After 3 weeks of being on this, do I feel more energized? Do I feel like being around people and connecting? Because generally you do when you feel good. And just, I think, experiment. It's about experimenting and finding your happy medium, but not being closed off to it and just saying it's not for me. Because if you are dealing with a disease, or there is an imbalance, or you're not feeling well, or you're premenopausal, there's so much you can do that's within your control. And the only way you're going to know is by either working with someone or by experimenting yourself. Do the yoga. You don't have to start with food. If you feel like maybe just doing some flow yoga is good, do the flow yoga and just do it consistently every single day or every second day and see how you feel. And check in with yourself and ask yourself, how am I feeling? Because 99% of the time you can feel that change. So I think it's important to experiment. I had a mother that came to me the other day that's, really has problems with her child, ADHD, doesn't want to put her child on medication, heard about food as medicine, and she's experimenting, and within a week there's a change. Within a week the teachers are saying, it's like a different child, because she's taken her off all these addictive sugars and the child is focusing. So we're preventing that child from going on medication. That's a huge thing. But you never know unless you experiment. That's the important thing. My husband was told he had to go on statins, and I said, absolutely not. They didn't like some of his markers. And so he agreed to experiment with me. And 3 months later, he went back to the doctor, and the doctor said, you absolutely 100%. Never seen such great markers. All I did was take him off his dairy because he loves cheese. I took him off dairy, and we replaced it with some sheep and goat's cheese, which he eats sometimes. And his markers are fantastic. He would have been on statins for the rest of his life, because once you're on them, it's very difficult to come off them. So you need to find your way. You need to experiment. You need to be open to having the discussion. And you need to constantly take ownership of your own health, take ownership.
I think what you
Am I talking too much for you, Elaine?
No, not at all. I'm just like multitasking. Not at all. I mean, we you can see, we love just listening to stories, and people are happy to just sit and listen to your wealth of knowledge. You just said something now that I so agree with. It's really about taking ownership. One of the things that I noticed when I went through my journey is there's quite a, and when you go through and you're given quite a hectic diagnosis, there is this fear that can set in, and you go to the doctor and it's like doctor, and the thing that for me was really important was to not go there as a victim, but to go there as a collaborator, you know, to work together with either your coach or your doctor or whatever it is, but get involved in your health. Nobody can do it better than you, you know, or with all the love in the world that family and friends might have suggesting various things, or a coach. If you don't participate, you really can't get results. So yeah, get involved.
Yeah, you have to ask why. You have to ask the question why. You know, people go and they get a diagnosis or something happens to them, and generally they'll phone me and they'll say to me, why, you know, why is this happening? I said, did you have a conversation with the doctor? And it's important for the doctor to understand that you are playing a role in this journey, you know, that because often the decisions are just made for you. And some people want that, you know, some people just want the doctor to tell them what to do. But I really do believe that you need to understand what's going on. You need to know so that you get the best outcome possible. You know, we all want to live well. None of us want to suffer. And sometimes people see the doctor as the God, and they are fantastic and they are incredible and they're amazing. But if they're not prepared to have the conversation with you, if they're not prepared to have the why with you, you have to second think your relationship with them. Or you need to find someone who can help you on the other side, you know, so you have your east and your west, and you find that happy medium if the doctor won't have that conversation with you. But at the end of the day, it's your body, it's your health. You need to take ownership of that. And I mean, I've learned that through my own journey. You know, whatever I went through, you know, everyone goes to what they got to get to the place that you need to get to in life. And I'm at a place where I love my life. I love my work and everything, but it was a journey to get here. But I didn't ask enough of the why on the way there. And I didn't research enough when I was going through what I was going through. We now have the internet. We have amazing podcasts. I mean, incredible podcasts. And people can really educate themselves by listening to what's going on in this modern medicine and functional medicine and integrative health world. And you should start getting involved and listening, because it's fascinating. So, yeah, and I know a lot of people ask me, you know, about the latest sciences. There is so much going on. It is impossible to even keep up with the latest supplements, fast techniques, fast mimics, hormone treatments. But you have to really, you've got to read and research, and you've got to educate yourself really well, because a lot of it is just too new and doesn't work. And you need to really, I mean, I focus on things that are proven, tested. I'm very scientifically backed. So I like to see the science, and I like to see things proven before we go that way, before we go a certain route. I love fasting, absolutely love fasting. I think it's fantastic for reparation for the body, spurring on autophagy, cellular repair and renewal. Works an absolute bomb with gut issues, people that are trying to repair from cancer treatments, chemo. But it has to be done under supervision if you don't know what you're doing, and you need to research about it and understand what you're doing to the body. Yeah, so, and also when it comes to exercise, that's why I love yoga. I think people push themselves too much. That's also a whole other story. Yeah, the balance as you get older, you know, and learning to do more weight resistance training, even body resistance. I mean, yoga to me is a body resistance training, using your own body as weight. As we get older as women, we lose muscle mass, we lose bone mass at a very quick rate and pace. And the only way to beat that, or to live long and well, and to maintain that good structure and stop yourself from being getting, I call it internal damage, is by actually doing the weights, doing the resistance training, and not pushing yourself with the cardio and pushing your body into a fight and flight mode all the time, because that creates absolute chaos and adrenal stress and cortisol stress and wrecks our hormones. But so for every stage you have to reassess and you have to do what's right for your body. And quality of food, I'll go back to that. I'll circle back to the conversation. Food is imperative.
Sorry,
Are you there, Elaine?
Yes, I'm here. I just heard somebody's needed to mute. There was somebody in the background just chatting. Keep on going. Food is imperative.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we having such a nice sort of candid conversation. There's so much to discuss on this topic, but I'm wondering if anybody would like to just at this point start feeling free to unmute yourselves and start asking any questions pertaining to various things you might be going through, or questions about health or nutrition. Anyone want to start the ball rolling? Rob, yes.
Hi, Elaine. Thanks for a fantastic presentation and speech. I mean, it's not speech, but I mean insights and everything that a lot of eurekas went off in my mind, connecting a few dots together. And I would like to know perhaps where we could find a good source for functional eating or functional medicine just generally. You mentioned, inform yourselves. So do you have anywhere that you could direct us to?
I would.
Say again, Robyn?
I would. Can I comment, Elaine?
Yes, please. Absolutely.
Can I comment?
Yes,
I'm just going to reach. So if I had to recommend a start, there's a doctor called Dr. and he is absolutely exceptional. Exceptional functional medicine doctor. He runs the Cleveland Clinic in America, and he was one of my lecturers. He was one of my trainers, and he's very relatable. He has a podcast called The Doctor's Pharmacy. Pharmacy is Pharmacy. I listen to it religiously. He has the most fantastic speakers on there, and he speaks in a way that's really relatable. And you can go through all the podcasts. I would go right to the beginning and then choose things that connect with you. So if you have some type of metabolic condition, or if you're struggling with something, try and find a talk on that and start there, because that'll pique your interest. Or just start from the beginning. The other thing you can do is, I've got it here because I've actually been going through it. He recently brought out a book called The Keto Diet. Can you see it?
Yes.
And I would really recommend you buy this book. It's a very easy read, and it is so informative, and it just explains everything we've been talking about. Food as medicine, whether you should be eating meat, vegetables, and if you do eat them, how you should be choosing them. So quality of food. I'm open to all types of eating ways. I don't favor anything, but it's all about the quality. He talks about that in the book. He talks about it's 21 practical principles for reclaiming your health, and he is one of the godfathers of functional medicine. Jeffrey Bland is actually the godfather of functional medicine, but he studied under Dr. Jeffrey Bland, who I do a lot of courses with him as well. And it is such an incredible book. It goes through, eat the rainbow, your food is a pharmacy. It talks about the keto diet, which, I'm hugely into the keto diet. I follow the clean keto Mediterranean diet. I don't believe in lots of unhealthy fats. I believe in avocado, olive oils. He's the same principle. It talks about coffee, alcohol, cleansers, gut health, about anxiety and depression, how it's, linked to gut. Get the book and listen to his podcast. It is incredible.
Thank you. Also, Nick just put in the chat for everybody his link. So everybody can just go on to just have a look at the chat, everybody. Principles Reclaiming Nutritional Health, the Pagan Diet. So thank you for that, Nick. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm sure that answered Rob's question quite nicely. My sister asked me, she couldn't come tonight, and she asked me what advice you would give to her. She suffers from psoriatic arthritis.
So, that's a form of autoimmune. And autoimmune is huge, absolutely huge. There are 80 million, I think, Americans at the moment with autoimmune condition. Autoimmune in layman's terms is just the body self-attacking itself. So when it already stems, most of it stems from the gut. When the gut is imbalanced and when you get something called leaky gut, I'm sure you've heard about it. When the gut barrier starts, the junctions start separating, we get something called leaky gut, where particles from your inside start leaking into areas where they shouldn't be, the rest of the body. And the body sees this as a foreigner, like a foreign, something that's totally foreign, and it starts attacking that. And often what happens is it doesn't just attack that, it starts attacking that and then starts attacking other organs as well, and attacks anything that looks like that as well. So my advice would be to go on an elimination diet. This is what I would do. I would go on an elimination diet and I would take out anything that causes gut imbalance and leaky gut. So I would start with sugars, dairy, all glutens, legumes. If she eats meat and chicken, I would take out the legumes. She doesn't eat chicken and meat.
No.
So then I would just focus then on taking out sugar, dairy, gluten, soy, corn, anything that has glyphosates, anything that is unnatural for the body. In other words, the body does not recognize it. It's very involved in the explanations why, but I'll just give you the broad frame of work that I work with. So I take out anything that causes leaky gut, that's proven to cause leaky gut, that causes inflammation of the gut lining, which will be your sugars, your glutens, your dairy, your corn, your soy. I would cut out coffee and alcohol for at least 3 weeks, if not 6 weeks. And if you're if you're vegan or you're vegetarian, I would then make sure that I pressure cooked I would take all grains out and I would focus on legumes, and I would just make sure that I pressure cooked all my legumes so that I'm getting rid of something called lectins. Lectins is something that has been proven to cause this inflammation of the gut lining. It's the outer of your legume. And you can soak your legumes and you can wash them really well and then slow cook them. But best is to get a pressure cooker so that you actually get rid of that lectin, that outer layer. And I would do that for about 6 weeks and see what happens within the body. I would fuel myself with nutrient-dense foods. So I would have half my plate full of plant-based vegetables, the greens, the whites. If she's not worried about weight, I would put things like carrots and sweet potatoes and pumpkins in there. I would put proteins of legumes. I would also look at things like spinach, hemp seeds, chia seeds, things like that, spirulina, and then healthy fats, very important, healthy fats. So things like avocados, olive oils, coconut oils, very healing for the gut. So all your Mediterranean fats plus your coconut oils. I would only cook with things like coconut milk and coconut creams, and I would do that for about 6 weeks, see how I feel, and then I would reintroduce things slowly. But it is a protocol. And generally what happens is what you're doing is you're giving the gut time to heal. You're giving that, you are forcing those junctions to reconnect again. I would also, recommend things that like anti-inflammatory or supplements like omegas are fantastic. If you take fish omegas, I would say take the EPA DHA, the fish omegas. Otherwise, I would find a vegan omega source. Very high quantities of those, very high, to reduce the inflammation in the body. I would maybe look at a really good probiotic. You've got to be careful about those. So you've got to work with someone, because some of them can cause more chaos and more up your histamine. But generally find a really good probiotic. I would take a multivitamin that had zinc in, because zinc is amazing for the gut. Zinc and maybe minerals. Look at your mineral contents. Take something with minerals in. So general, like multivitamin and mineral. And have lots of healing things like aloe juice and licorice, which is very healing for the gut. And just all we're doing is we're really focusing on repairing the gut and rebalancing the gut microbiome by having lots of these plant-based foods with protein and healthy fat. That's what I would do. And I would just do that for 6 weeks. You can also look at things like, what are you putting on your skin? Like, is she exposing herself to lots of endocrine disruptors that are causing chaos? So you can go, that route as well and add on there, but start with healing the gut, definitely. And use food as medicine to start with.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much. A couple of questions came through from Nick. So Nick wanted to know, how do you find a good probiotic? Are they really necessary?
That's a good question. I believe that there are some excellent probiotics out there. I think that probiotics are fantastic for the gut, especially since we are not getting a lot of our food is deplete of nutrients, and we don't have the right foods to feed the gut microbiome. So the probiotic helps to rebalance the gut. And I look at it like an insurance policy, really. It's just adding to your health. You can get probiotics from food, lots of probiotics from food, and you can feed yourself full of, lots of prebiotics that create probiotic. But the probiotic is fantastic. To answer his question, yes, I do believe in probiotics. The key with probiotics is to really find the strains that agree with you. So you should work with someone. Different strains do different things in the gut. You shouldn't just take a probiotic. You should actually speak to someone at the health store, or speak to someone like myself, or speak to someone in integrative health to find out what probiotics are best for you. If you've got histamine intolerance, like I said, you're not going to take it's called CASEI, C-A-S-E-I, because it's going to create more chaos. So you've got to be careful about what you're taking. And generally, I like spore-based probiotics, which means that they really get down to the colon area and they feed the gut bacteria in the colon. And it's also the delivery system. So there's some fantastic brands out there that are doing incredible things, but you need to work with someone. I wouldn't just go into a store and just buy a probiotic. I would actually ask myself, why am I taking this? And what is it doing for me? And if I am going to take it, the other thing is you need to keep on changing up your probiotics. Because if you stay on one probiotic all the time, you're only feeding certain strains in your gut. And then you're creating imbalance again. So you need to feed different strains. So as you finish the one probiotic, you need to go on to a different probiotic to feed different strains. And I generally like probiotics that are shelf life friendly, so not stored in the fridge, because I then know that they are going to be alive when they get into the gut. When they're stored in the fridge, generally, I feel like 90% of the time that they have to be stored or refrigerated, by the time they hit the guts, the heat within the system is going to destroy that probiotic anyway before it gets to where it needs to get to. So I like shelf-stable probiotic. It's a complicated answer to a very simple question. The answer is you need to work with someone, or you need to ask someone who's very well informed at the health store. And yes, I do believe in probiotics, but it has to be the right one.
because I watched. Thank you for that. That's amazing. It's super useful. I listened to a podcast with two doctors working in the probiotic field, and they were talking about. They were basically going. It's pretty much the future of medicine. The future probiotics are the future of medicine, but because of these grand claims, we can't really. You just don't know what you're getting. And having more strains is not necessarily good, or, and so I tend to go like, well, where am I really getting bang for my buck here? Is it like, can I really afford to be spending money on something like this? And actually, who knows what it is? Because they were actually quite dismissive. Doctors working with probiotics going like, this is like the wonder drug, future of medicine. This is how you cure so many things, going, but actually the stuff you can buy is probably not doing anything. And so that's why I'm asking is like.
Yeah, I think it's very new. We don't know enough. We don't know enough. There are some companies in America that are absolutely fantastic and that are developing spore-based probiotics and have proven that they get to where they need to get to. And these probiotics are actually helping to strengthen the gut lining, which is where I think actually when they say it's a future of health, that's where it really is. Probiotics that contribute to strengthening the gut lining, that is key. Probiotics that help to create butyrate, which are short-chain fatty acids, which is energy for the cells. That's really where the future is. But you need to go with companies where there's proper research, scientifically backed, that can show you the studies. And there are very few in South Africa available, to be honest with you. I do believe that food first. I think that if you don't have, gut problems, if you don't bloat and have FODMAP and SIBO issues, and you're good with vegetables and plants, you should first try half a plate of plants as a prebiotic to feed the gut bacteria and do it naturally. So you should look at food as your balancing of the gut, because nothing beats food. Nothing will ever beat food. And we know that the body recognizes food and the body knows how to use that food. So I would first look at trying to move towards a more plant-based way of eating. Plant-based meaning half a plate of leafy greens, the whites, the cruciferous vegetables, sulfur-based onions, garlic. And I would try and get my gut right by feeding it all these different plants and allowing my gut to rebalance that way. And then I would start adding on maybe some probiotics on the days when I can't get that food into my system, or if my body, can't handle as much. I would then look at a probiotic or, a prebiotic. But it is a fascinating field, and it is definitely as I said, the gut is everything. And that is why probiotics are getting so much attention, because it's all about creating this strong, a diversified gut microbiome with a strong gut lining and keeping everything within the intestines and not seeping out. What brand were you looking at getting, if I may ask?
So, I mean, I've bought the liquid one that you don't have to, because on this podcast they said don't buy the ones you need to refrigerate. So I bought the liquid one, and then I've bought the like Probiflora. I've tried a couple of different, the store ones. Then my daughter's just done a course of antibiotics for a sinus infection, and the pharmacist at Clicks gave me their Clicks brand probiotics, and I'm like, is it really do they really do anything? There was a hilarious little clip on Trevor Noah going, I'm taking antibiotics and probiotics. Don't they just cancel each other out? It's like, no, it doesn't work like that.
What you got to do is, honestly, look at food as medicine, especially for your daughter. What you should be doing is when she's on her antibiotics, you need to make sure that she's really eating. She's not having lots of sugars, and the conventional dairies and the glutens, because what you're doing is with an antibiotic is you're wiping out your whole gut microbiome. It takes up the good with the bad. And now you need to start nurturing that garden again. And if you're feeding that garden sugar and dairy, you're going to get the bad bacteria outgrowing the good bacteria. So you have to try and keep a diet really, really nutrient dense, full of the plant. That's more important, I think, than the probiotic. And then you can feed her, some really good organic yogurts. So get an organic yogurt from Sans in Sea Point, or get a goat or sheep yogurt as a really good probiotic for her. That's a natural probiotic. And get her to eat lots of things like, if you can, asparagus and garlic and cauliflower and broccoli and all these amazing vegetables. Hide them in soups, hide them in her mince, hide them in stir fries, because that is how you're going to repopulate the gut more so than a probiotic. And if you're going to do a probiotic, try and go to a really good health store and ask them. I mean, I can't name brands, but ask them about a really good probiotic for repopulating the gut. But I wouldn't walk into a Clicks and just buy a Click brand. That I wouldn't do.
Nick, go to Health Matters. Laura there is very knowledgeable.
Yeah, Health Matters is great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. Somebody asked about fermented foods as well, which I guess includes yogurt, but I guess kimchi
and all of that.
Fermented food is amazing. Sauerkraut, kimchi. There's a great brand called Chez Gourmet that makes this mustard and kimchi. The problem is most kids won't eat the fermented food because it just doesn't taste good. So you've got to kind of, you can give her pickles. You can make your own pickles at home. There's a brand called Pekel, Pekel, that doesn't have sugar in it. And that's a great way to get prebiotics into a kid's body. Add that to her sourdough sandwiches. Maybe get a really good sourdough for her that's fermented. So try things that she's going to eat, but definitely try and get the vegetables in there.
Thanks so much.
Robyn, there was one more question in the chat by McKelly.
Yes.
Please give some insight into the usefulness of 35% food-grade hydrogen peroxide as a general tonic and to alleviate disease.
I can't comment on that. I don't know enough. I've read about it, but not enough, so I'm not going to comment.
Sure.
I think she must take it up with her. Yeah, she should probably take it up with her doctor.
Cool.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So I just tested positive for the Epstein-Barr virus and it's active. I know that there isn't a cure. I just wanted to know what you know about it, what you would recommend in terms of treatment, getting it into a dormant stage, and then how to kind of manage it from there on.
Yeah. You can definitely, it's very manageable, very, very manageable, and many people have it. What you've got to do is you've got to focus on lifestyle and you've got to focus on food in a huge way. So the same protocols as, focusing on your guts, protocols of, I'd actually start with things like stress and movement, to be honest with you. You need to address the stress in your life. Anything that is creating imbalance in the stress arena, you need to start addressing that very seriously, because the minute that you are stressed, your body goes into this fight and flight mode. And it, with most people with Epstein-Barr, it seems to rocket out of control when that happens. So every person's different. You've got to look at your life and go, okay, whether it's studying or, relationships or whatever's causing that stress, you need to address that first, okay, before we even talk about food. You have to focus on your sleep, okay? You have to, if you're not a good sleeper, you have to start addressing that, because your body really needs the rest and repair when you're fighting something. These things lie dormant in the body until the body is stressed out. The minute the body is stressed out, it kind of rears its head. So you have to address the stress constantly. You have to address sleep. If your lifestyle doesn't dictate for that, you have to change your lifestyle. You have to be very serious about it. And then, of course, the food. You have to nourish yourself. You have to nourish your guts. You have to take out anything that is inflammatory in the body. So, it's the same. It's all the sugars, anything processed. Vegetable oils are absolutely shocking for anything that's on the side. When it comes to autoimmune or underlying viruses and bacteria, you have to take out all the vegetable oils, the canola, sunflower, most of us, when we go for takeaway or to restaurants, everything's cooked in vegetable oils. They are highly inflammatory for the body. I didn't mention this before, but that's one of the things that I'm very strict about. So you have to go on a certain protocol, an eating protocol, and you have to work with someone. You can't do it on your own because you need guidance. And if you just try go on your own, you can end up with nutrient deficiency. So I would speak to someone, and what you can do at the moment is address stress, address your sleep, maybe do a proper gut analysis of what's going on within the gut. You can do something like a GI mapping test, which looks at all the different strains and bacteria and viruses within the gut. You need to work with a doctor who can read back those results to you. And then I would address your diet, and I would take everything that's inflammatory out of there. It's a change of lifestyle. And just make sure that you are consistently moving towards that very pure state of eating, and really look after the system.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just spent
but it's
the last
also very
leaky gut. And
say that again.
So I've just spent the last year treating a leaky gut, and I've finally healed. So it's just interesting to hear that kind of the protocol I was doing for that would kind of be the same protocol for this, but it didn't neutralize both. So
yeah, well, it does. It's all linked. Everything's integrated. What were you doing for your leaky gut, if I may ask?
So I cut out all inflammatory foods. I supplemented with the nutrients that I wasn't, that kind of weren't all the way there. I was doing a gut healing powder, so gut health, good health, gut guard.
Good health, gut guard.
Coliperm. And then doing the Flourish Spore Probiotic, and just kind of trying to boost all of those things. I wasn't very consistent, but I would do like 6 months really intensely and then go off for a month or two, and so it was a back and forth ebb and flow kind of thing. But it's now healed, which is amazing, and I lost 40 kilos in the process.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And with your Epstein Barr, do you feel tired? Do you feel that it's kind of there all the time?
Yeah. So I thought with healing the guts and losing the weight, it would alleviate the fatigue and the sluggishness and the constant postnasal drip and just the feeling of unwellness, which now that I know that that's kind of what you get with the Epstein Barr, I'm understanding why, even though I'm healthy, I mean, I've been on a plant-based diet for the last 5 years. Even though I'm healthy in it, it's still, my body still isn't feeling good.
It takes a long time. It is not an overnight process, and sometimes it can take 6 months to a year for a gut to heal properly. And sometimes, and it's consistency, and that's why I say it's a journey. It's a constant journey. But I would definitely work with a doctor, and I would have more testing done. There's a lot of testing you can have done. You can have organic acid testing. There could be something else there too. Okay. So if you are doing what you're meant to do, and after 6 months you're not seeing the change that you expect to see, you need to ask the why, like I said, and you have to investigate further, because often it's not just one thing. It could be a number of other things too. And you have to keep on asking, and eventually you will get to that root cause. So don't stop and say, I've got to heal my gut and everything's fine. If you're not feeling good, you have to go and you have to look and investigate further.
Okay, cool.
And stay on that path. And stay on that path. You can't just veer off for a month and come back again, because it can take 6 months to a year for things to heal. That doesn't mean you have to eat perfectly all the time, but once a week, if you want to divert and go in a different direction, fine, but make sure the next day you're back on that horse and you carry on going in the right direction, so that your body doesn't just kind of collapse for a month and then you kind of come back to it. So like a 90%, 10% rule, I would say, because you have to enjoy your life. You can't just stay on a certain path. But I wouldn't leave it there. I would look into it deeper, because it's often it's not just the Epstein bar. There's something else going on, or you haven't healed the gut properly. There's other stuff going on there, and you have to continue with a more, maybe a stronger protocol.
Okay, all right. And I did also want to ask about so vegetables. Can you overeat vegetables?
First of all, quality of vegetables. What vegetables are you eating? So I put a strong focus on leafy greens and whites. You can never really overeat. What you've got to be worried about is, if you've got a gut problem. Are you there? Yeah.
Yes.
If you've got a gut problem, you've got to be careful with plant-based, too much fiber, because you can create a lot of chaos in the gut. People come to me and often they don't react well for the first week or two because they have things like SIBO, or they've got FODMAP and they just don't digest the fiber properly. So you've got to start slow with upping your vegetables and your plants. So always start slow. If you are used to the food and you've got no gut imbalances, then I'd say about half a plate per meal is fantastic to eat, but you need to have a good combination of protein and healthy fats as well. Plants can actually act as anti-nutrients as well. This is also quite involved, but the undershow is that there are things called oxalates and phytates that exist within certain plants, and lectins. And if you don't wash the plant properly, or you're eating, say, mounds of kale, you can have an imbalance of oxalates, too much of this anti-nutrient in your body, and it can stop your body from absorbing other nutrients. So moderation is key. So yes, you can overdo it. So moderation.
All right. And then if you cook your food, does that change the nutrient content? Are there some foods that you should eat raw, or?
So anything that's high in oxalates that I just mentioned, like kale, I like cooked. I don't like people eating raw kale at all, because it is an anti-nutrient. So I like things that are also harder to digest. I like to cook those, because it's just easier on the gut, especially as we get older. It's easier to eat those if you cook them and steam them. But generally, you just got to be careful with eating too much raw later on in the evening. So if you are plant-based, I would say raw is more for mornings and lunchtime, and evenings it's nice to cook them. When you cook things like kale, you get rid of the oxalates. So there's a pro there as well. I wouldn't overcook. I think steaming is fantastic, or lightly sauteing is lovely. And making sure you're sauteing using, your olive oils and your coconut oils, and you're not using oils that will oxidize. But you've got to think about digestion to answer your question too. Too much raw is going to cause too much upset within the body. So then again, moderation. Some raw, some cooked. I like cooked later on in the day or the evening, and raw more for lunchtime. And the leafy greens are fantastic. Your watercress, your rocket, that are easy to digest.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you find your way.
Thank you.
Just keep looking at, keep unfolding, unpeeling the onion and finding until you find your answers, because it is a journey and it takes a while, but you will get there. Yeah, and address your sleep and your stress.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a question from Jill. She wanted to know about sourdough. Is it an okay food? What about the gluten in it?
So sourdough, it all depends on quality again. So if it's properly fermented, it can be fantastic. If you don't have celiac, if you don't have celiac and you don't have a gluten intolerance, then sourdough is a great alternative. But you just got to make sure that you're buying quality sourdough. So ask them how long they ferment. The longer they ferment, the better. Then it acts like, you know, the probiotic in the stomach. When I do an elimination with people, I always take them off sourdough for at least 3 to 6 weeks, because it has gluten in it. Most of it has gluten in it. And there are very few sourdoughs that don't have gluten. So you've got to be very careful. It's a very nice bread for kids, especially if you're trying to move them towards better. I think that it's nice in moderation. In moderation, it's fine if you don't have any gluten problems. But I find that 80 to 90% of people do have some type of gluten sensitivity or intolerance. So just buy quality. None of the answers are ever easy to answer, because I deal with people on such a personalized basis. But I'm just giving you my broad feedback. But obviously, when I work with people, it's very much based on the person. If the person's got gut problems, they're not having sourdough with me for at least 6 weeks. And then we'll see what happens after that. There are other alternatives. It's never about deprivation. I have great alternatives that I give you, and people learn to love them. So they never look back. But I'd say sourdough definitely, like once a week, moderation. If you're going out for brunch and you don't have gut issues then or gluten problems, it's fine.
Joel said, thank you. Oh, thanks, Joel. So nice to have you on the join tonight. Fantastic. Okay, so let me see. Is there anybody else that has any pending questions? Mike.
Hi. Yeah, I have a few things that I was thinking of. You know, I've been into nutrition the last few years now, and I read up a lot on it daily. I get daily newsletters and whatnot, and I've changed my diet and the whole exercise and yoga. And the two topics I really like talking about is yoga and nutrition. So it was fantastic listening to you tonight. And I think like one of the things with like processed foods, and when people try to change and go for more plant-based diets, is that they possibly don't realize, like, and noticing the difference is that when you're eating those processed foods, that's your normal. And getting away from that sort of addictive things that are in there and getting that out of your body, and then starting to have eating clean and whatnot, that I think a lot of people won't even realize that processed food is sort of addictive already. They, you know, that it may take longer to realize that they would that a cleaner way of eating, you actually will feel better.
Yeah.
Because it's not their normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I think that Sorry, Mike?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You know, gluten has something called gliadin in it, and sugar is, you know, obviously addictive in itself, and dairy has something called casein 2 in it, which is proven to be very addictive too. And we don't realize this because we don't look at food as addiction. We look at things like alcohol and drugs and all that type of thing as more addictive, but food is you know, sugar is more addictive than cocaine. We know this now. We've seen the experiments, and we also don't realize that it's often not about willpower. A lot of people just say, you know, I just can't do it. I can't do this. I can't change my life. I just miss my... But what I try and explain to them is that it's not really about willpower. It's not their fault. It's that it turns on an addictive receptor. These foods, these processed foods, are actually specifically made in a way. There are people that actually develop them to be addictive. There's actually a formulation that they use to create addictive foods. And we are actually supporting these industries by buying them. That infuriates me even more, because you know, we're always trying to do the right thing, and people are always talking about earth, but we actually, you know, you vote with your dollar, and how you spend your money is how you are voting for the next generation too. And we are supporting these big farmers and industry that create these addictive foods, and people can't stop eating them, not because they don't have the willpower. It's not their fault. It's that the food has just got addictive product in it. So that's why I talk about elimination, because elimination forces you to come off these foods that are addictive. And yes, you do go through a detox period. A lot of people do. They go through about, you know, it can vary between 2 days and 10 days where people feel absolutely awful. But it's my job to hold their hand through that. And I have tricks up my sleeve that we use, and we can get through it. And once they're through that, the next, you know, 2 to 3 weeks can be hard too. But once they hit like a 6-week mark, they feel like, you know, so different and so alive and so rejuvenated. And when they do go back to that food, they can actually taste, it just tastes so different.
Yeah.
And they realize that it is, then they kind of see how addictive it is. That's not to say that we can't enjoy ourselves if we are out and we want to have a dessert. And what you've got to do is you've got to aim towards making your body metabolically flexible, which means your body can jump between burning fats as fuel and sugars as fuel. And when you do that, you can actually manage that addictive behavior as well. So you can go and have a pudding out, or you can go and have a beautiful meal or a pizza or whatever you want. And then the next day you just go back into eating healthy and your body just bounces back. But when you're constantly eating these processed foods, you know, you can't just bounce back. It doesn't happen. So it plays out as sickness and disease in the body, because eventually the body just has enough. That's what I see personally.
Yeah, well, I agree. And I think that's why a lot of, you know, processed foods, they sneak that sugar in. So, you know, even if they say this is a vegan thing, well, there's loads of sugar in there. Well, what kind of oil are you using? They're like using sunflower oil or something. You know, you have to read the ingredients, because you think, you know, I think it happens to a lot of people that they think they're eating a healthy thing, but actually they're not. You know, it's all actually processed. And again, that has the effect on the gut lining, which causes a leak or something, and then toxins go into the body, and then you have all these different things.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with that absolutely. And then the other, Naomi was saying about like portions of vegetables and whatnot, that like I was doing some strength training, so I did a lot of reading, and that your body can only absorb so much, say, protein at one go. You know, it's either 25 or 30% or something. So if you're eating more than a portion of something, well, then the rest is just wasted. You know, break it out throughout the day and divide it up instead of doing it all in one go. And then your body can absorb and use all those nutrients more effectively.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And, you know, and then I of course disagree with the fasting. You know, I've tested all this stuff on myself, and so I feel like I've done really well. I sleep better. The clean food is fantastic. Everything is better. I cut out white bread, sugar, all that. I occasionally have the sourdough, but it's fermented like 24 hours or whatever. And I can't, I'm sure, you know, the process of fasting and that your body has to go through and digesting all this food, so that when you get to that point, you know, after 14 hours or something, then you're repairing your cells, you're rebuilding cells. And then like by the time 16 hours, all right, you're ready to go for some more intake, you know, and a 16-hour fasting really isn't a big deal if you're doing it overnight. You know, it's very feasible to do. The other thing is statins. You mentioned statins, so coincidentally, that's what started me on the whole thing. You know, I went and my cholesterol was through the roof, and I didn't understand why, because I don't eat all these fried foods, but the doctor said it's hereditary. So I said, okay. So they put me on statins, 40 milligrams. Did it, bang, it dropped down. And then the healthy living exercises and all this. And then I tried about a year ago to get off them, because I'm like, all right, I know what I'm doing now. Why do I have to be off them? Or can you make it less? And they wouldn't take me off them, because it's hereditary. So I'm still experimenting with myself, and I'm taking less. I'm doing an experiment, and then I'll get myself checked and see what the level is. And if it's still low, like after 6 months or even a year, well, then I'm on the right track, and I can wean myself off them, and that I could be in control of this hereditary thing. What do you think about hereditary statins and cholesterol?
I think that there with heart, there is there's a 5% percentile that says no matter what, it's no matter what you do, there's a certain gene, no matter what you do from a lifestyle perspective, you are at risk. So you've got to be careful that you don't have that gene. We can talk about that, you know, I can send you notes on that. So, you know, 5% of people do have that gene, and you've got to be careful that you don't have that gene. So you can find out whether you've got that gene or not. But 95% of people don't have that gene, and lifestyle dictates whether they can come off that statin or not.
Right.
So if you are taking, you know, heart conditions are and cholesterol is really driven. It's not about fats in the diet. That's totally antiquated. It's about actually too much sugar, too much of the bad processed food and carbohydrates, and too much of the vegetable oils, which are in everything, absolutely everything. And that is what's creating the chaos with heart conditions and heart disease. So if you can, if you've been experimenting, you've got a very clean diet, and you are managing your stress, and you are exercising, and you know you're slowly coming off, lowering your statins down, and you're seeing your markers are improving, then you know that you're in a good space. But I would, from a safety perspective, and you can also do a test. The best test out there is called the NMR test. Not a lot of doctors do it, and that will measure. And they don't do it when you go to most physicians here. But what it does is it measures the. You've got your LDL, which is your bad cholesterol, right? But it measures the particles of the LDL. So are they small and dense, which are problematic, or are they big and fluffy LDL, which are not problematic? So we just get LDL number. That doesn't mean anything, absolutely nothing. So NMR test will go into a lot of detail, and it'll look at exactly what type of particles you've got and how they are. And you can also have a CAC scan that looks at how much calcium buildup is on the artery lining in the walls, which is even better. So that's really informative. It's one of the best you can do, a CAC scan. So you can do that before you come off your statin as well, just to make sure. But I would also check, I would have a look at what gene profile I had, and I would make sure that it wasn't in that 5 percentile, because you've got to be safe.
Right,
there's a time and a place, and you've got to look at east and west, like I said. Regardless, you're doing everything brilliantly. I mean, you're on your way you're on a really good health track. So if you do have this gene, and it is, in the 5 percentile, so that will be, one thing that you can't control, but you can control everything else. But most people with heart and statins can control it through diet and lifestyle, because they don't have that gene, which is the 5 percentile. Mm-hmm. So you're on the right track.
I'll find that out. And just the last final thing, that I know, like you were saying, you love nutrition, and this is what you do and everything. And I think we all have things that we do, and we get absorbed into it. And it just reminded me of, Elaine and I talk about nutrition quite a bit. And there was I forgot who it was that said it, but there was this thing about, the two lumberjacks, the story with the two lumberjacks. There's two lumberjacks, they're chopping wood all day. And at the end of the day, and so during the day, one of the lumberjacks just disappears for an hour, and he comes back. And at the end of the day, he seems to chop more wood than the guy that's there all day, chopping all day. And this happens day after day after day. And he's like, wait a minute, how come you leave every day for an hour, but yet you cut more wood than I do? And he goes, well, I go home to sharpen my axe. and there you go. So I think, well, I just thought this thought with yoga and yourself and you doing such good work in nutrition that taking time to do yoga would sharpen your axe to make more effective,
I agree.
so.
Absolutely. And I am doing that, Mike. I am. Thank you for the reminder. I'm definitely going to be doing more yoga, and I'm going to be having more fun, and I'm going to be, taking it a little easier, put it that way, spending more time with my family. I know it's needed because I need to practice what I preach, and I really do, but I think just for a year or two, it got a bit crazy. Yeah. And when you love something, you just lose yourself in it. But I think that you have to have balance. 100%, you have to have balance. I saw my own health declining over the past 3-4 months. My health started declining, and I was feeling great, and it was because I didn't have that balance, and I'm finding the balance again. So thank you for that reminder.
Thank you very much.
Robyn, thank you so much. This has been such an amazing evening. So many people have put messages in the chat. We can send it all to you. McKelly and Marcy, I think they're still here. They said thank you so much. Lisa, she sent a message on the chat, and I think she sent you a personal message. She wanted to get hold of you, so you can just check that message there. Sue, thank you, Sue. So informative it was, right? Thanks for joining, Sue. Daphne, and she's gone already. Lynette, who never comes to conversations, came tonight, and I'm so excited. So it's just what she needed. What I'd love is if you can, and Caroline, thanks for the great reinforcement. You're right, absolutely. So Caroline, keep on coming to my conversations. There's always something interesting to hear as well. If you can send me a little WhatsApp, either this evening, maybe this evening or very early tomorrow morning. I send everybody out, whoever, if they want to get hold of you, either for a consult, more information, that would be great. It's an ongoing process, as we know. So thank you for joining this evening. I loved it. I know.
Thanks,
everybody.
Elaine.
So, feel free to come back to the kitchen anytime.
I'll be coming back to listen. Thanks so much, Elaine. It was lovely to talk to everyone.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Marlene.
I will see you on the beach.
Yay, absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for joining.